Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another of these colossal Jurassic World figures that everyone forgot about. This time we've got ourselves the Indoraptor from Mimo Toys. Now I can't really recall exactly if the Indoraptor came first or if it was the T-Rex. I kind of think it might have actually been the Indoraptor, which was the very first figure revealed for this line. If that is in fact the case, then I'm pretty happy to have the very original of the Mimo Toys brand, but I think either way I would because I've also got the Rex. However, you can see the figure this time has the open window sort of a look, but without the plastic. There's nothing kind of obscuring the Indoraptor, so we can see this one a bit better. And I will say it looks kind of strange, just like the T-Rex did. Definitely doesn't capture the likeness of the Indoraptor perfectly. Another thing that I noticed, which is very weird, is if you actually look up here at the image kind of promoting the figure, it has sort of, in like a very sloppy way, the stripe running down along the side that you see on the Indoraptor. However, on the final product on the figure here, I don't see it at all. And, you know, that's something you would expect them to have included, so I'm not really sure why they didn't. But you can see the box art elsewhere. It's pretty much like it usually is for these Mimo figures, or at least it seems that way since we've only ever taken a look at one. Up here on the top of the box, you can see a really cool image of the Indoraptor. This one also has a handle, which the other one did not have. And then if you turn it to the side, again, the Jurassic World logo. And then here on the back, unlike the T-Rex, we actually have an image of the figure. On the T-Rex box, it was an image of the T-Rex. Here on the back of the Indoraptor box, it is in fact the Indoraptor figure. Just, I guess, the prototype, because it seems to have more paint apps than the one that we have here. But anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and pop this out of the box and check it out. So there we go, we've got our Indoraptor out now and standing before us, and straight out of the gate, I can tell you this figure is definitely a better figure than the T-Rex. I don't really know what the T-Rex has going on, but it at least stands here a little bit better than the T-Rex did, the Indoraptor here does, because you can see the feet are actually flat on the ground. It just generally looks nicer than the Tyrannosaurus did, but it's also still not exactly what I would say is a screen-accurate version of an Indoraptor, and these figures in general almost have like a kaiju-like feel to them. Like, they almost feel like what you would see if you took the Jurassic World dinosaurs and then put them in a Godzilla film or something like that, like an old-school Godzilla film. But it is still kind of fun-looking, I have to give them credit, just not exactly the best version of an Indoraptor out there. So, as always, we're going to go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at this, and we'll check it out from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Indoraptor, you can see it looks okay as far as like the skin texture goes. The overall head shape and stuff I would say is kind of reminiscent to the Indoraptor, but by no means is it perfect. The skin texture is also kind of a bit too rough and rugged looking compared to the more finer scaling that you see on the Indoraptor in the film. This one looks again like a very exaggerated version of an Indoraptor. The paintwork, though, right out of the gate does look a bit nicer on this one than it did on the T-Rex. Like, the eye, you can see, has some variation of color to it with kind of like an orangish tone, then a yellow and a black pupil, and it's nicely placed. Same deal for the area of skin here on the inside of the mouth that's stretching. You can see the paintwork is a lot better on this than what we had seen on the Tyrannosaurus. The tongue is sculpted here on the inside of the mouth, again painted, and it is actually painted on the underside. Almost didn't look like it was there. But again, the paintwork just looks better, I think, on the tongue as well, although it didn't look terrible. Try to move this around. It didn't look terrible on the T-Rex, but just like with the T-Rex, though, the rest of the inside of the mouth you can see is unpainted. Sculpted fairly okay, but unpainted. The teeth are all sculpted individually, kind of, for the most part. Some of the teeth down on the bottom jaw seem to be sculpted together, but for the most part, they seem to be mostly sculpted individually. They don't really look that great. They have a super rounded edge to them, and they just genuinely don't look like the Indoraptor teeth, but they look, I guess, okay for what they are. Painted with that same similar sort of off-white bordering on a yellowish tone that we had seen on the T-Rex. You can also see the nostrils up here on the top of the snout. You can see the detailing up on the top of the head. Looks okay. We don't have, I'm trying to reposition this again because he's so big, I'm trying not to knock stuff over back here, but we don't have any of the quills or anything on the head or neck of the Indoraptor like you do see in the film, so they've just abandoned the quills completely on this version. You can see that we do have neck articulation, though, which is definitely smoother than we saw for the T-Rex. As you move down here, you can see, running down the back of the neck, we do actually have the scoots that you see on the Indoraptor, but you can also see that we actually have some of them painted out with a goldish tone, which as well is kind of reminiscent to the Indoraptor from the film. The paintwork for those areas isn't exactly what I would call, great. You can see it's just basically like they touched each one and then moved on, so that could definitely be better, but it doesn't look terrible, I guess. Well, it kind of looks terrible, but not that bad. Well, it kind of looks terrible, but it's definitely not the worst thing I've ever seen. However, like when you look at it from the side, you can actually see how bad it does look, because you can see it's only like the tips that they've really painted. But as you lead down here into the neck, you can see again that the detailing looks okay. You have like some tensing and stuff here in the neck of the Indoraptor as you lead down into the body. Again, you can see the joint there where the neck is connected. It is super, super obvious, like really bad. There's like a little gaping wide area here between the neck and the body, again because of the way that the articulation is created, as well as the material, I think, of the figure. But as you move down, you can see the arm sculpt looks okay. You've got some nice muscle definition. Again, no quills or anything leading off of the arm, but it looks okay for what it is. We do actually have a little extra articulation on this one compared to the T-Rex. First of all, we do have the arm articulation, which is definitely a little bit stiff right now, but you also have wrist articulation, and that's something we didn't have on the T-Rex. And you can see the fingers look okay. I think they actually look better than they did on the T-Rex, because they were kind of short and stubby, and the nails look terrible on the T-Rex, whereas they look a little better on the Indoraptor. Still not great, but a little better. And the detail doesn't, feel quite as muted on the Indoraptor as it did on the Rex. As you move up into the stomach region, again, you've got some nice looking scale detail. You've also got some osteoderms and stuff poking up here and there. I feel like the detailing looks a lot better in the stomach region on the Indoraptor than it did up in the face. As you continue to lead along the back, we continue to have those scoots moving down along the spinal column, as well as those small ridges following along, again painted with the gold tone of color as I smack the light over here. As you lead down into the leg, the thigh is pretty darn big, but it's not as big as we saw in the T-Rex, so it doesn't look quite as ugly. You can see that the muscle definition is present, and again, the scale detail does actually look pretty good. We also have articulation. As you lead down those legs, you can see the thigh articulation is really quite nicely done. Fairly smooth overall. You've got the knee right there. You also have a calf muscle leading down. And then as you lead down into the foot sculpt does look a little awkward. The nails look alright. You can see they definitely look a lot better than they did on the T-Rex. Even the sickle claw, again, looks a lot nicer. But it's just, something just looks off about it. I don't know if maybe the foot's too small or what the problem is, but it does look a little bit strange. You can see scoots running down the toes as well. And we do have a dew claw, but it's like, you almost can't even notice it, unfortunately. But as you lead back up, again, you lead out into the tail. You do have one last area of articulation, which is a swivel, but just like with the T-Rex, I don't really want to mess with it too much because I'm worried it's going to fall off, and the tails are an absolute pain in the butt to get on here. They are also kind of a softer rubbery material, just like we had with the T-Rex. Same deal for the fingers. The hand, actually the arms are a harder plastic, but not a hard plastic. It's still kind of slightly flexible, but the fingers are definitely more of a rubber. But as you move back here again, moving down the tail, you can see the scoots kind of taper away as you lead out into the tail. You have a nice curve for the tail leading down. Not really anything going on paint-wise as you lead out here, though, just basically our black tone and some pretty decent looking skin texture. As you move along the underside, that as well looks okay. Again, you lead into the underside of the dinosaur. Once you leave the tail and lead into like the groin and stuff, the skin texture gets pretty rough and rugged looking under here. Like, I don't know, again, a little bit more exaggerated, I think, than it needed to be. And then if we turn it around, for the most part, we're going to see pretty much the same thing on this side again as what we had seen on the first side. The head looks decent at best, and then as you lead back here, you can see again that we have the same thing going on. Basically, the Indoraptor does have its head turned toward its right ever so slightly, but not enough to make a massive difference on one side compared to the other. Again, the arm's going to look pretty much the same articulation and stuff as you lead down. but it's an articulated arm, so it's up to you to kind of pose it. The leg is the only area where you're going to see a massive difference because this leg is trailing a little bit more so than we saw for the opposing side as far as the leg goes. And the foot sculpt looks, again, just as awkward with these short stubby toes. They just look a little bit strange, and then we lead out there into the tail. So the Indoraptor is not the greatest Indoraptor out there, that's for sure, but I can say I do like this one quite a bit more than I like the T-Rex. Now, I'm a little bit torn, I think, on these figures, because after the T-Rex, although I was happy to have it, I was also kind of content not acquiring any more of the others. But now that I have this Indoraptor, I don't know, this guy's just kind of fun, so now I'm kind of back on, maybe, for grabbing some of the others. I believe the seller had mentioned potentially having the Indominus Rex, so I'm half tempted to, at the very least, get that one. I'm not super intrigued by getting Velociraptor Blue, but the Indominus I might have to grab. But again, this figure definitely would have looked, I think, a little bit better had it actually had that stripe moving down the body. That's the only thing that I think, you know, color-wise is really missing on this one. But as far as a size goes, there are, of course, other slight variations of color you could have added. But when it comes to the toy form version, you know, I think that's the one thing you should have at least had. But you're height-wise looking at about 14 inches or around 35.5 centimeters. And then for a length, if we come all the way out here to the tail and run up to the snout, about 28 inches or around 71 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colossaurus Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A human being next to our Mimo Indoraptor, and you can see again that this is very large, just like I expected it to be. It's extremely similar in size, I would say, to the T-Rex. They don't really differ much in the way of size at all, which means I don't think we need to do too many comparisons this time around or anything, because we obviously know that these are a good bit smaller than your average colossal figure from Mattel, but also much larger than pretty much anything else when it comes to these species that you'll find in the Mattel line. And I don't really have too many other Indoraptor type figures like this that would go well comparison wise. Honestly, it's going to dwarf most everything. So I think we'll probably just at this point move on from the comparisons. I really don't feel like we need very many as far as this figure goes. So this Mimo Toys Indoraptor is kind of fun, actually. I don't know, I really like this one a lot more than I like the T-Rex. It's still not great, you know, there are things that could definitely improve the figure, like the paintwork specifically is one thing that could improve it. You know, painting those ridges moving along the back, they're very sloppily painted, so a little bit more precise paintwork could have made that look a lot nicer. And, of course, just like with the T-Rex, another thing that could improve it would be articulating the jaws, because the lack of jaw articulation just takes away a lot of playability from the figure if you're a kid, and more posability when you're an adult collector like me. But outside of that, again, it's okay looking as far as the sculpt. It definitely doesn't replicate the Indoraptor perfectly, but it at least looks kind of fun. Again, it almost has like a kaiju-ish type version of an Indoraptor sort of a look. The skin texture looks pretty good in some areas, not so great in others. Like, it just looks off in the face, but when you move down into the body, I feel like it does look pretty decent. And it also has a bit of a shine to it, which is something you do see on the Indoraptor. It does have kind of like a slight sort of shine to it, so that's a plus for the figure. It's also nice to see that the articulation is a lot smoother on this one compared to the other one, but still a little touchy, you know, like the wrist. When you articulate the wrist, I feel like one small wrong move and that would pop right out. And then same deal for the tail. Again, the tail does not stay in too well, but the figure, just like with the T-Rex, has its ups, has its downs. Definitely better than the Rex, but by no means is this a masterpiece. However, if you are interested in picking this up, I will include a link, just like I did with the T-Rex, in the description to the seller on eBay that does have these available for sale. Again, if you'd like to add something that's pretty unique to your collection, something that is definitely not easily accessible here in the United States or probably anywhere outside of Brazil, I would definitely go ahead and grab one of these, because they are still really cool, they are still gigantic, and pretty interesting add to any Jurassic collection. So if you are interested, check that link, go grab this Indoraptor, and of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.